Welcome to All Grown Up Now, Tales of a Checkered Past. I'm Kenneth D. King, podcasting from my studio near Union Square in New York City. This podcast is an evolution of the tale, All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts. This is Season 2, and it's called Tales of a Checkered Past. It's a collection of short stories from my salad days on up to the present. In each podcast, another self-contained story will be presented. These podcasts will be broadcast bi-weekly, so you get 2 a month. Enjoy. Episode 42 is called Mrs. Freeman. You've met her before. She was in the novel All Grown Up Now, and I did a podcast on her, but this is really the rest of the story. So here goes. This is a bit of a love story. It's about Mrs. Freeman, my first landlady. I've said before that life began for me on May 6, 1980. I regarded everything else that went before as doing the previews in New Haven before an opening on Broadway. That play would have been called Dances with Landmines. I graduated from college on May 5th, and that was Independence Day. I knew I needed to get through college, and then I could escape to make my own life. So, bright and early, on May 6th, I started my new life by going to the apartment locators on May Avenue in Oklahoma City to find my dream place. I sat across the desk from one of the automaton agents there. After taking all my information, she droned, "Well now, what kind of place are you looking for?" "I want something very small on the northwest side of town and close to my work. I work at Shepherd Mall," I said. "And how much do you want to pay?" "Oh, I think $100 a month." Much to my surprise, this elicited a spell of mirth and chuckles from the automaton agent that made her look positively lifelike. She thought it quite funny that I was wanting this combination of circumstances and proceeded to tell all the other agents in the office so they too could enjoy the joke. One of them called out, "Hey, honey, I have just the place." There was silence. "Could I see it?" I asked. "Sure, hon. When do you want to go look?" my new friend asked as she walked over and offered her hand. She looked like Central Casting sent her to the wrong audition. They wrote automaton on the call sheet, and she read animation. She had red-dyed hair up in a French twist, powder blue double-knit bulletproof polyester pantsuit, white patent leather sandals, and mercurochrome orange fingernails and matching lipstick. From the lipstick, she had a terratin. The ash was dangerously long. My kind of gal. "The name's Patty. You want to see the place soon, hun?" she said. "Right now, if I could." We shook hands, and I could hear the ka-ching sound of a commission earned. Patty made a phone call and came back with a piece of paper which was pink and scented with Taboo by Cody. On it was written, 6100 North Villa, manager named Q. "You'll ask for the manager. Her name is Q, pronounced like the pool cue," Patty said. "It's real small, I'm told, but in a good neighborhood. The old lady who owns the place is a real caution, I hear, but I think you'll get on fine." Paper in hand, off I went to find my new home, which was close by. As I parked on the street, I looked around. This was a nice neighborhood. The place was a collection of small duplexes, not an apartment house as I was expecting. After finding the office and introducing myself to Q, an odd name for an odd woman who looked like Frances Farmer after the electroshock, we went to see the apartment. The apartment itself was actually in my landlady's backyard. Mrs. Freeman, I'm told, had inherited the property, which was a farm many years ago. She was very shrewd with her assets and built this series of duplexes as income property long before the area had been built up, and over time, she sold off the rest of the land. After the golf course went in, Mrs. Freeman had decided with the fence they put up blocking the view, it was a shame to waste such a large parcel of backyard, and had a mini duplex built. The operative word here being mini. There were 2 units here, a 1-bedroom and a studio. I would be looking at the studio. Q unlocked the door and showed me in. This was indeed the smallest living space I had ever seen. The width of the living room, which was paneled in fake walnut wood grain paneling, was the length of the twin bed, which fit in the far end of the room, and the length of this room was about 9 feet. That was the big room. The closet was in the kitchen, along with the air conditioner. The only way to tell the difference was that the kitchen had the window and the stove. Heat was provided by one small space heater they would bring in when the seasons changed. I could put my hand flat on the ceiling, and I'm only 5'6". However, what sold me about the place, aside from the price, was the bathroom window. It was one of those aluminum sample windows you see at the hardware store, the samples you order to measure from. Remember those? It measured about 10 inches wide by 18 inches high, with an itty-bitty window screen, a sash that pulled up and down, complete with a tiny little lock, just like the grown-up windows had. After I moved in, I made a blind for it using just a placemat I had bought at Pier 1 Imports. The place came furnished, a term that almost always means we had these shitty things we just didn't feel energetic enough to send to Goodwill. I immediately asked Q if she could have them removed, as I had my own things, or soon would have. It's $100 a month with a $50 security deposit, Q said. If you get the deposit to me today, you can take possession tomorrow. Done, I said. It didn't take long to unpack and get things situated, as I worked in window display and I was used to floofing things up on the quick. Happily, Q had gotten rid of the yellowed eyelet curtains along with the other furnishings, so I installed some snappy tortoiseshell split bamboo blinds from Pier 1. It was only after they were up that I discovered that they were alarmingly sheer and provided next to no privacy. As I was reveling in my new independence and decorating prowess, I heard a knock on the front door. It was Mrs. Freeman. I was sure of it. I could see her right now through the alarmingly sheer new blinds that I had just put on the door window. Patty was right. First, the visuals. Mrs. Freeman was, I later learned, 88 years old, about 5'3", with that kind of dumpling figure some old ladies get, barrel-shaped body with bird wings and legs. She had gray hair with a little black still in it, black-rimmed, pointy cat's-eyes glasses that were real thick, and wore a sort of shapeless, nondescript blouse and pants. Mrs. Freeman, and I always called her that, she had no first name that I know of, wore her bright red rouge in dots in the centers of her cheeks. The lipstick was similarly applied in the center of her lips, and I got the impression that as a young girl she had seen that particular look on Mae Murray in The Merry Widow, thought it terribly chic, and never felt the need to change it. Thinking back, she reminds me of Ruth Gordon's character in the film Harold and Maude. Mrs. Freeman was cheerful and full of life, what Southerners would call feisty. She may have been old, but she wasn't old. There was a sparkle in her eye and a crispness to her movements that told me she was a force to reckon with. I liked her immediately. "Hello, young man. I'm Mrs. Freeman," she croaked with a voice somewhat like a parrot that had had too much whiskey and cigarettes. "So you're the young man that Q was telling me about. May I come in?" I invited her in, whereupon she started an inspection of what I had done to the place, commenting favorably on the furnishings, what few there were, and how I was so unusual that a bachelor man could decorate and keep a nice house. She was going to have to tell her bridge club out there. They wouldn't believe it when she told them. She didn't hear many of my comments. As I observed and later confirmed, she was deaf as a post. That evening, I heard a television playing at full volume, and went to investigate. It was coming from her living room. This was very comforting to me, as I realized that I wouldn't hear many complaints from her about the noise or comings and goings during the wee hours. Mrs. Freeman had a mad passion for bridge. She would play it to the exclusion of every other activity if she could have. The bridge group she ran with was equally dedicated, and they would meet every Sunday for a day of bridge and gossip. The first time I saw this group was on an early Sunday morning. I had just arrived home, and I was locking the car. I was also breaking my rule about evening clothes and daylight. Up roared this big, beige, late 60s Buick Land Yacht sedan with a gaggle of old ladies in it. The chatter sounded like the proverbial hen house. Mrs. Freeman, dressed in a bright pink dress with matching pillbox hat, complete with a little veil, lipstick and rouge in place, big black handbag, gloves, and dressy black ankle-high lace-up orthopedic shoes worn with thick support stockings, came tottering out of the house. A car door popped open, almost spilling some of the hens into the street, but Mrs. Freeman managed to wedge herself in and get the door closed before they tore away. I was enchanted. One time, while Mrs. Freeman was hosting, and after knocking back one too many of her beloved bullshots, fell and broke her arm in 3 places. Calmly, she just told everyone to start the game without her, which they did, hardened fanatics that they were, while one of the ladies took her to get her arm set. When she got back, she washed a few painkillers down with some Sanka and finished the afternoon playing bridge along with the rest of them. Now that's some hardened bridge player. But it was just what I would have expected of her. When Mrs. Freeman, sporting a cast from her wrist to her shoulder, told me about this later that week, I was so traumatized that I wanted to take to my bed. She told me later that they all rotated around. Each lady hosted a bridge party in her house, and eventually they would get around to her again. Her next bridge party occurred one Sunday in the fall, right when I was getting back into the swing of things socially after working very hard. I had been, entertaining a gentleman caller overnight. We were sleeping blissfully when, opening one eye to see the early morning light, I also saw Mrs. Freeman and the entire bridge group at the front door through the alarmingly sheer blind over the door. Oh, shit. "Ken, are you awake?" she croaked. Oh, yeah, I was awake. "Just a minute," I yelled back. I turned to my gentleman friend, whose name escapes me, I just remember that he was blonde and really cute, and said, "Don't move." I rumpled up the covers to cover him up and grabbed my bathrobe. After opening the door, I said, "Mrs. Freeman, what a surprise." "Well, Ken, I couldn't call you because you don't have a phone, but the ladies just won't believe that a young bachelor man can decorate and keep a place up like you do. They want to see it for themselves." "Mrs. Freeman, I'm not dressed," I stammered. "And the bed's not made. It just wouldn't be proper for ladies to see these things." "Oh, you're shy. There's nothing these ladies haven't seen before." There was much cackling from the ladies. "I'll bet," I thought. "Well, we'll come back later in the day after we finish up with our bridge game," she sighed. And off they tottered, much to my relief. I heard chuckling from under the bedclothes and realized that I had some unfinished business to attend to. A few days later, I saw Mrs. Freeman out in her backyard watering her garden. She settled in for a good chat. "Boy, you remind me of myself when I was your age," she croaked. "You know, when I was a girl, I'd get in so late that I used to have to milk the cows before I went to bed. The sun was usually rising, and many a time I'd be squatted on the milking stool, barefoot in my dancing dress, with the skirt hiked up above my knees. You see, I didn't want to spoil my silk stockings or my favorite pair of dancing slippers. Boy, I had fun. Her voice trailed off. And then she pounced. Now, don't think because I can't hear that good that I don't know when you come in at night or whether you're alone. I'm hard of hearing, not stupid. There was a glint of mischief in her eyes that was clearly visible, well, magnified actually, through the Coke bottle-thick glasses she wore. She evidently enjoyed the look of surprise on my face. And the next time we show up unannounced, tell the young man to lie flat on the bed before you cover him up. He won't show under the covers as easily. She paused for effect. Voice of experience, she chuckled and winked. Years later, I was getting a reading from my friend Richard Scholler, who is a medium in Long Island. For those who don't know, mediums communicate with spirits who have passed. We were sitting in the room, and suddenly he looked at me with a strange expression. "Your landlady is here?" he asked. "You lived in her backyard?" "Yes," I said. "She liked bullshots, cosmopolitans, and bridge. And she couldn't see too well to drive?" "Yeah," I said. "Coke bottle thick glasses. Drove a blue land barge and could barely see over the steering wheel. If I was driving and saw her on the road, I'd just pull over. It was safer." "Well," Richard said, "she wants me to tell you that she's been following you all these years. She says congratulations on your book." "That's nice to know," I said. "She also wants to let you know that she understood and knew more than she let on about your relationship with your mother and who you were dating." "Yeah, she was a smart one," I said. "She leaves you with this. She loved you like a grandson." "I always felt that," I said. "I loved her too." "And," he said, "she regards you like a star that shoots across the sky. And I regard her as one of my guardian angels. She watched over me when I was making my escape from my old life in Oklahoma, and she has watched me all the way to today." Thanks for listening. You can get the audiobook All Grown Up Now on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon, or from my website, allgrownupnow.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. If you have any questions, you can reach me through the website, allgrownupnow.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Kenneth D. King, on Facebook at Kenneth D. King Design, or on my main website, kennethdking.com.